Daryl, I'm curious about this. The weather is what everyone seems to be talking about right now with, I just can't believe it, because we are outside of our comfort zone when we think of the temperature on February 6th, and certainly the amount of snow. This is the type of year that really throws off the quote-unquote average, doesn't it?
It does. The interesting thing, of course, now that you mention that, if you would take the last 2 winters, which were awful, and then add this winter on it, you would look at, the last 3 winters were average. That's just how it works. Speaking of which, NDAWN, last month in January, from the lowest temperature recorded to the highest temperature recorded last month, was 104 degrees. Different.
Holy moly.
Yeah, from 39 below to 63 above. 104 degrees. It was just kind of, even by our standards, it happens here, but even by our standards, it was kind of a crazy testament to where we live.
Last spring, we were going on this stretch where I don't know where we landed in the history books, but the stretch we went without 40 degrees was so long. Spring didn't even happen last year. And now I feel like we're having spring in February. We've been riding our bikes outside, and it is what Tom always likes to remind us, we won't get paid back. Like, the weather doesn't pay us back. Good weather doesn't pay us back with bad weather, but it does sort of seem like we're all waiting in anticipation. Like, how will we be paid back for this really nice January and February?
It's interesting. I pulled over, and I'm safe. I'm in a parking lot up in Harwood because I was speaking in Reynolds, North Dakota this morning. And so in that conversation, I mentioned to them, and I would agree with Tom, it's not like Mother Nature pays us back, but it's always amazing how at the end of the year, how close to the average temperature we are. Like, for instance, December, wow, was that super warm? It's 15 degrees above average. But as you mentioned, last March was 15 degrees below average, and April was about 10 degrees below average. So it balances out. So I would say, no, it's not like we're going to get punished, but, at the end of this year, we'll probably end up pretty close to the average, which means there will, of course, be some cold stretches in there. And I would lean towards those probably coming this autumn. Will just not be as nice as last autumn. Might be a below average autumn, for instance, just to kind of and balance things off.
Right. Gosh, we had a really nice fall this year, too. Going into this winter was just absolutely gorgeous. I mean, we had some really phenomenal days. And I think what's even more surprising than the actual temperature itself, Daryl, is that we haven't had one of those big dump-on snowstorms. We didn't have any very widespread severe storm activity over the summer months. It has been so calm, Daryl.
Yes. Well, we haven't had a lot of severe weather in recent years, mainly because we've had dry summers. Severe weather brings a lot of our rain. And I always tell farmers, I understand why no one likes severe weather. It does bad things, but it also does a lot of good things. It actually does more good things in a way than bad things, is because, you'll hear the bad stories about the hail and that, but that tends to be like 1%. The other 99% a lot of times is a very healthy, good billion-dollar rainfall, that fell. And so that, is why in some ways really to have more rain would sadly in our climate come with more severe weather here. And then, but then the rest of what you're talking about is just right. I mean, it's just, one of those years. I mean, in many ways, this is very similar to what happened to us back in the winter of 11-12. Very, very warm, very, very little snow. But that's why, this event coming up this week on Thursday and the Friday, in Fargo, probably a lot of it will be rain, but Friday I would be surprised if it didn't switch over to snow. But even if we got an inch or two of snow with a little wind on Friday, that's kind of, if you think about it, not a big deal for us. You have to slow down. You have to have some common sense, all of that stuff. But this week, it'll probably be like, whoa, because, we haven't had anything happen to us in the last 6 or 8 weeks.
We have had a ton of, someone in our text club said we had 2 horrible winters back to back. This is our reward. I feel that.
I would agree.
Yeah, we have had some brutal winters. You're not wrong. Let's talk about all the fog that we've been having, Daryl Ritchison. The fog has been really intense in the mornings. Is that just we're just at the perfect dew point or temperature, or what is it?
Well, our ground is frozen. Even though there's no snow on it, the ground is frozen. So the ground is cold. And of course, then we have all this warm air surging over a frozen ground. So you're taking warm air and cooling it down to its dew point in a way, and then you just get a lot of fog. To be honest, I've been surprised by how many sunny days we did have. We had a couple of days, last week that were sunny and broke record highs. But most of the time when you have warm winters, it's not so much because of the high temperature, it's because of the low temperature.
Right.
Because the temperature is, let's be honest, like I'm the co-op observer, in Fargo. So when I made my report for yesterday, I do believe my high was 33 and my low was 29. So the 33 is above average. Yeah. The 29 is way above average.
Yeah.
And if it would have cleared, my high would have been maybe 36 and my low would have been 10. Still beautiful high temperature for the time of year. But again, this is kind of typical of mild winters, is because all that warm, moist, Gulf of Mexico air is overriding our frozen ground, and then you just get a lot of low clouds and fog.
What is the ground like right now? We were talking about that, like frost depth, and is the ground still frozen? It is still frozen, right?
Very much so, much more so than last year. Interesting thing is last year we had very little frost in the ground because we had all that snow covering it on top of it. This year, most of the frost depths are between 18 and 24 inches. There's some spots that are down to 40, 45 inches because of that big cold snap we had in January. And although it's been really warm, the sun angle is really low, and plus we haven't seen a lot of it. And so we're really not warming up the soil much. Maybe the top inch or so. And so if you're live on a gravel road, yeah, the roads are muddy. I was just on them this morning in my talk in Reynolds. But really underneath that, there's still some frozen ground, especially in this part of the state. Southwestern North Dakota, not so much, and they have the frost rules in place for the roads already because of the mild weather. But again, that's going to change with this little storm coming up this week, and then we'll at least go back to normal, I think, temperature-wise next week.
Yeah. These temperatures are just great. I haven't been even really wearing a jacket for a week.
Oh, I haven't worn a jacket, and I don't intend to. So even if we go back to normal,
JJ's put it away for the winter. So if snow is coming back on Friday, well, that's just how it's going to be.
And Daryl, I want to touch on this really quick because our own weather guy, Too Tall Tom Szymanski, is out in California, out in Palm Springs right now, where they are having unprecedented water coming down just in droves. It seems like this, and I read about stuff on the East Coast where they get just hammered in snowstorms. It does seem like the really sensational is the word I'm going to choose. Weather has been avoiding the Midwest all summer long or all winter long.
Yeah, well, typical in many ways of El Nino. El Nino, the southern branch of the jet stream, the subtropical jet stream, is more active. So that would be across California, across the southern tier of the United States, up the East Coast. And so the polar jet stream tends to be a little bit weaker. So if you go back and look at El Ninos, what's happening this winter happens in a lot of that. I mean, there's two kinds of El Ninos. One that makes us have bad winters, one that makes us have really good winters. This happens to be one of the El Ninos where it's set up, makes for good winters. But again, this is all, to me, very, very typical of these types of El Ninos that's currently in place.
Well, there you go. See, I ask a question of an expert and I get a great answer out of it. I appreciate it.
Has anyone talked to Too Tall? Is it just downpouring where he's at? I don't know.
I'm a little afraid.
Well,
if I'm
he's
be
in
honest.
the desert and a little bit blocked by the mountains, and I haven't looked in particular. But, here's the thing about California. You're going to hear all the bad news about California, and bad things are happening when weather happens out there. There's a lot of people that live there. But here's the other thing that you won't hear because it's good news. This is probably a $250 billion rainfall for them, filling up their reservoirs, giving them the water they need. They live in a climate where one or two storms is the difference between them having great year water-wise and a bad year water-wise. So again, to me, if I was in California, I'd be rejoicing. Obviously, bad things are happening. Those need to be taken care of. Don't get me wrong. But again, a vast majority of this is actually fantastic news for them, because this storm in of itself might be the difference in keeping those reservoirs for having water for the crops that they grow, of course, for people to drink and stuff too. So again, Tom just seems to go where the weather's bad sometimes.
It does look
but
like
it's a lot of good news.
I know, and you're right. I mean, I've been in California several times when it's been restaurants aren't serving you water. You're asked to conserve water. There are signs everywhere. It is very you're not taking a shower every day, sort of a thing. So we've all been there and seen that. And it looks like today might be some precipitation, but then it looks dry after today.
Correct. And a piece of that storm is actually coming up this week. And again, by our standards, I don't think it'll be a big deal. It's just this winter, it might be a little bit bigger of a deal than normally, just because, we aren't really all used to that. Because again, even a little wind and an inch of snow, and the temperatures are going to go from above freezing to below freezing. I'm sure the roads in some areas won't be perfect. Again, it's just this winter is so unique that I think it will just make people sigh and thought, I wish it would have lasted a little longer.
I know. I'm trying to soak in every minute I can. I love it.
Yeah,
Daryl,
you and me both.
Okay, good. I was like, oh wait, are you a winter fan? Are you waiting for some big snowfall, or are you okay with this?
Oh, no, I'm the cooperative observer in Fargo. I have to get up at midnight and measure the snow. When it doesn't snow, Daryl Ritchison is the happiest person in town. Just saying.
I love it. I love it. You can find all that information at NDAWN. You can visit the North Dakota Agricultural Weather Network. It's got lots of little stats for you. And Daryl Ritchison is the one curating them for us all. And you can check all of the cameras all around North Dakota to see what it looks like. You can look at wind directions, wind speeds, rainfall, dew point, wind chill, soil temp, soil temp, bare soil temp. I don't really know what any of them mean, but I ask Daryl when I need to know. So
exactly, and everyone's always free to contact me up at NDSU and let me know. And I will say, Amy, yesterday it was announced that I'm the interim state climatologist now with the sad passing of Dr. Accused. I'm taking on that interim for a while here, too. So I added that to my duties and responsibilities for a while.
Well, congratulations to you, but congratulations to NDSU. And that, what a great move.
And those are some big shoes to fill.
Yes, very much so. So we'll see if it becomes permanent or not, but at least interim here for a while. So I was very happy and to be able to take on those responsibilities.
Wonderful news for all of us. Daryl Ritchison, congratulations. Interim state climatologist as well. Add that to the mini list of things that he does for us. Thank you, Daryl. Appreciate your time.
Yep. Thank you for having me on.